The best countries to live in if you have a disability. That's today's video. Let's get into it. Hey everyone, it's Matt. Welcome back to another Blind to Billionaire video. I'm joined by my wife, Corey.
Hi.
And today's video is we're going to be talking about some of the best countries to live in if you have a disability. Now, this video was actually inspired by one of you here on the channel. This person reached out and said, hey, would you consider making a video talking about some of the best countries to live in if you are blind? So, of course, as you know from watching this channel, I'm actually blind. And so we actually changed the title of this video just a little bit, and we included if you have a disability rather than just including those who are blind. So we thought, this would actually be a really interesting video. Now, I want to make this somewhat of an interactive video because I'll be honest with you, we only live in the United States. We've never lived anywhere outside of the United States. So I'm really hoping for any of you who are located out of the US to leave a comment down below and maybe tell everybody which country you live in, and then maybe give a little explanation of some of the benefits that your country has for you if you have a disability, or maybe if you don't, maybe just give some of the benefits that you know of that your country offers. So again, if you're located here in the US, maybe you can specifically talk about your state or some of the benefits that you've experienced living here in the United States. So we've compiled a short little list here of just some ideas we've come up with, and we thought we're going to share this with you, and we're actually really excited to read the comments that all of you leave down below, sharing about your state, your country, and just some of the benefits that are out there for anybody who has a disability living all around. So we thought this is probably a pretty cool video, and I'm excited to see all the different responses and, of course, all the different countries that report, because we do have a global audience here on the Blind to Billionaire channel. So let's get right into the list, and first off, thank you so much for watching this video, and we really look forward to reading these comments. This should be pretty fun. So Corey has the list, and we'll get right into it, and we'll explain a little bit.
Okay, so the first thing we want to talk about are the different state services in the United States.
Yeah, so each state here in the United States, of course, it's going to vary a little bit state by state, but I can speak directly to like services for blind people, and of course, for other afflictions out there, I'm sure there's other services and things like that, but I can speak to it from the perspective of a blind person because I've, done the research and I've talked to many other people here in the US and things like that. But each state should have some type of agency, like I said, dedicated to like helping blind people with maybe like vocational rehab services to maybe help that person get the necessary skills that they need for employment, maybe like writing of resumes, job interview, like mock-up job interviews, maybe even preparing for an interview. Or maybe it's something like, in the case of like a blind person, going through with orientation and mobility training, technology training. There's just adjustment to blindness training. There's just a lot of different services out there. Again, these are for blind people, but I'm guessing for other afflictions and disabilities out there, I'm guessing there's other state agencies that are available for people to utilize in their respective areas, which is really cool. It's nice to have these services. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think in each different state, they have something that's unique, maybe similar. Mm-hmm. I know that they also have for people like as they are little, like if it's a little kid situation, kind of going through the school system mm-hmm. here in the United States, that they also have some good, or I don't even know if it's good, but just programming for people with disabilities that can help kind of get you speech and physical therapy, occupational therapy, kind of education, all like lumped together. So that's another thing that each state, I believe, does. And I don't know if that's state controlled or if that's a federal thing. I think it might be state, mm-hmm. but there's different programs that you kind of work through too to kind of get your everything kind of together. Do you know about that, Matt?
Yeah, okay. Really briefly.
Okay, yeah. So it's that's kind of one of the things that they have.
Yeah, it's great. It's so nice to see how many different services are out there available for all of these people to utilize. It's great. And in many cases, these services are, of course, not always, but a lot of cases, they're free or very minimally charged. So that's another really thing too, because a lot of times we know that these services, if you were to get them privately, they'd be very expensive. So it's nice to know that these are offered, in a lot of cases, free to a lot of people.
And this kind of brings us to our next one, that if you have a disability or blindness, that sometimes post high school education can be paid for in part or full.
Yeah, this is something that was brought up actually about a month and a half ago. We did a collaboration here on the channel with our friend Kayla, and what's interesting about her is she mentioned that she actually did her entire undergrad program, and now she's in her graduate program, and all of which is paid for by the state because she's blind. So, I mean, that's incredible. As all of us know, going to university, especially going through with your grad program and things like that, I mean, a person could potentially spend tens of thousands of dollars on college tuition. So to know that that's paid for, or, I don't know, in some cases 100% paid for, in some cases a percentage of it paid for, either way, I mean, that's an amazing perk right there. I feel like that's huge.
Mm-hmm. Another thing is Social Security Disability Insurance, so SSDI.
Yep.
So if you have a disability and you live in the United States, then you may qualify for SSDI. And that's just a program. Matt, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so again, that's another program here in the United States, and I'm guessing this is in other countries as well, but again, we'll just speak to the United States. But if you're someone that has a disability, again, it needs to be like, I don't know, there's a process that you have to go through as far as having like a medical diagnosis of something and then having it submitted to the Social Security Administration and them checking off like, yes, you have a disability, whatever, and then you can get a monthly stipend because of your disability, because basically they recognize having this specific disability, whatever it is, you're at a disadvantage in the workplace, and they recognize that, so they compensate by giving. In many cases, it's not a huge stipend, but it's something to help you out, which is a nice, it's a nice perk again.
Kind of going along with that, but not the same, would be if you are in a situation where you have a disability and you are not able to make a certain amount of income independently because of your disability or for a different reason. You in the United States could also qualify for either specific state services like just welfare type services, reduced housing, things like that, or SSI. So that's a federal program that we have in the United States. If you're somebody who either does or doesn't have a disability but isn't able to make a certain amount of income to like a livable wage, then you can qualify if you apply possibly for SSI. And then there's like food stamps, reduced housing. There's a ton of different programs that states and federal governments have to help you.
A little side note to that too is if you're a homeowner, if you actually own the home that you live in some counties, states, cities, whatever, they do have reduced property taxes. So that's another thing you can look into in your specific area again.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Yep.
That's cool.
Yep.
So there's just kind of different because they realize that sometimes if you have a disability, but not always, you're at a disadvantage to making a livable wage, and those are ways to kind of bring that up.
Yep.
Another thing that we want to talk about there's different tax benefits. If you're blind, there's tax benefits.
Yeah, again, I just want to say this is for blind because that's what we're most familiar with. But again, I'm guessing there's a ton of these for other disabilities as well. So if you're in my situation, like if you're blind, you can actually get an additional tax deduction on your tax filing, which is pretty nice. Not only that, if you have a disability of some kind and you need assistive technology, assistive devices, or something that is specific to your disability and you need it for your job, like in order for you to go to work, you need to have, for example, like this piece of assistive technology or this device. If you pay for that out of pocket, you can actually write that off on your taxes. But again, don't take advice from me. Connect with your accountant or your CPA, whoever knows your financial situation and looks over your taxes. But in many situations, you can actually write off those expenses because it's required. You need it for your job, and without that technology, that device, whatever it might be, if you can't do your job, well, obviously you can't do your job without it. So you can actually write the expense of that, whatever that item is, you can write it off, which is another perk. I mean, it's nice.
It is nice. And the last kind of two things that we wanted to talk about relating to having a disability in the United States is that we have the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, and that kind of helps like buildings and jobs and different things be compliant and non-discriminatory against people with disabilities. So that means an example would be if you have a business that you need to have ramp accessibility to your business so that people in a wheelchair or with mobility issues can get up to your business, and it has to be, there's like different like ramp inclines and different turnaround spaces that need to be a certain kind of diameter or distance so that it's safe for wheelchairs. So I know that it's not a perfect system. We know that. We know that there's different places that aren't ADA compliant or that are old and have been grandfathered in, different things like that. But in the United States, they are working to make things accessible for people. But we know that it's not perfect, and we know the United States isn't a perfect place for people to live with a disability. And the other thing I wanted to mention that actually Kayla with the C also mentioned is that just because there's things that they like do to help people with a disability, it doesn't mean it's equal. So it doesn't mean like that it's special treatment or a perk. It means that there's just things to make it so that it's slightly reasonable for people who have a disability to be treated moderately fairly to people without a disability. And I actually, honestly, when I read that comment, I thought, you know what, I really get that, because even though we made a video about perks because it's kind of like fun to think about things that might be like a little better than average, but really it's just trying to equal the playing field, and we know it's not even.
Yeah, and just like Corey said, basically it's just them trying to give, kind of like wrap some parameters around different, just regulations so that the playing field is a little bit more even for everybody. And like Corey was saying, making these businesses a little bit more compliant so that everybody, like, it's consistent and it's accessible for everybody. In a way. And of course, it's not perfect, but at least there's something in place to kind of look out for people like Americans with disabilities.
And so what I'm really curious about, and we're both really curious about, is in the country you live in or the state you live in, what's working really well and what's not working so well. And we just know about living here. We think it's good, but we know that other countries have things that are better, and we know some countries have things that are way worse off. So I'm always just curious what kind of goes on in other places.
Yep, exactly. Is that the end of your list?
That's the end of my list.
Yeah, so that's what we've compiled. Of course, we know that there are probably a ton more that we've missed out or that we've forgotten or we may not even know that they exist. I mean, that's obviously the case. But again, leave your comments down below so that everybody can read through and see, like, okay, in London, they have this program, or I don't know, just different programs all over the world. I think it'll be really interesting for everybody to read through the comments and kind of, get an idea of what other countries and what other areas are doing in the world, even in the United States here, just different states and areas, regions that are offering different services. So, and just share your experience. As a person with a disability, or maybe even not a disability, what have you experienced that is maybe like a nice concept that's out there for the disabled people? But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. I think it'll be interesting to kind of see what goes on. Maybe we'll all learn stuff about what's good that we didn't know existed, or we might also learn things that like we're not experts on disability.
Yeah.
We're not experts on the United States. We're just giving you the information that we are living. So
yeah, exactly. So anyway, we thought this would be an interesting video. I'm really excited to read through the comments and see what everybody says, and thank you again to you who has suggested this video. You know who you are, and I'm excited for the suggestions, so thank you very much. And please leave any comments or questions down below, and I'm really excited to read through those. So thanks so much for watching this, everybody. Have a great day, and we'll see you again soon.
Bye.
See you later.
You can't wait to see me